Good morning, Saints. My name is Juanita McKay, and I would like to share an experience with you if you don't mind me taking a couple of moments to do so. I can remember when my eldest son was 8 years old, being very angry with me, he decided to run away from home. Now, wanting to teach him a lesson, I decided I wasn't going to stop him. I knew he wasn't going to go very far, but he had to learn. I did mention to him just before he walked out the door that I had planned to cook his favorite meal, and smiling I said, fried chicken, rice with gravy, sweet peas, yams, and dinner roll. He says, you're really going to be missing out on something good. But being very adamant, he decided, I'm going to go anyway. And he picks up his suitcase and he walks on out the door. Now, a neighbor of mine noticed him sitting on his suitcase at the bus stop and decided that she would go over and start a conversation with him. And she says to him, she says, son, she says, you've been sitting at this bus stop for several hours. She says, and I've noticed many buses have passed by and you didn't get on any of them. Why is that? And he says, well, I don't have the money to get on the bus. And she says, well, how are you going to get to wherever it is you're going? Where are you going? I don't know. I'm just running away from home. He says, well, how are you going to get there? I don't know, he replied. She says, okay, well, I noticed that after being here for several hours, I think you should be hungry. Aren't you hungry? And he says, yeah, I am hungry. He says, well, did you pack anything to eat? And he says, I didn't think about that. Would you feed me? She laughed. She says, oh, no, not me. She says, but you know what? If you're really hungry, I know someone who would be more than happy to feed you. Would you let me take you there? And knowing that his stomach was growling and he was starting to get a little weak, he says, yeah. He says, you know what? I am very hungry. I'll go with you. So she brought him home. When they knocked on the door, I opened the door and saw him standing there, and he looked so pitiful. And he ran into my arms. He says, Mommy, I'm so sorry I ran away from home. He says, I'll never do that again. Will you take me back? And I'm like, of course I will, sweetheart. I love you. I loved you when you walked out the door, and I love you now that you're coming back. And he was happy for that. So as he was walking in, the last thing he said to me is, by the way, is there any dinner left for me? I started laughing and I said, of course there is. Little did he know, we hadn't even eaten dinner yet. But that's a whole nother story. Okay? It's amazing how hunger can make us forget about the situation we're in and forget about leaving home. Many of us will venture into a situation without thinking about the consequences, and of course, hunger being one of them. Upon reading the parable of Jesus, this one true parable stood out to me, and basically that is because of a personal experience that I had just mentioned to you. And that is found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. And this is the parable of the prodigal son. So I have decided to title my sermon as Unconditional Love Brings About Undeserving Favor. We all at one point or another have turned our backs on what is right and followed ungodly things. The world has a way of leading us to it, and I like to use the old saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, because that's how we see the world. We see the world as being a fascinating place with a lot of things to do and having fun and enjoying life and good jobs and making loads of money and becoming rich. Now, these are all the dreams that, people have about the world. And never think about the consequences that comes with that. Okay. Now, I'm sure none of you here have ever thought about going out into the world or backsliding, have you? 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 states, and I quote, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him." Close quote. Jesus tells us about a father who had two sons. And we look at verses 12 through 19 first because this tells of the youngest son. The youngest son decided that he wanted to experience the world. He wanted to go out and do his thing. And he didn't want to stay home and follow the rituals and all the rules and regulations that home and the Jewish community had. He decided the world looked much better. And he ventured. He went to his father and he says to him, he says, my father, he says, I want to go out into the world and I would like for you to give me my inheritance. Now, today, we wouldn't think that was a big deal. However, in the Jewish community, especially in the first century, they would consider this an ultimate dishonor. Kenneth Bailey, a New Testament scholar, has traveled throughout the Middle East and has asked people in many different parts of the Middle East, what does this suggest when a child asks his father for his inheritance when the father is still alive and well? And the answer would be shocking to you. It is the same wherever he went and whoever he asked, is that the son wanted his father dead. Have you ever heard a child tell their parents, "I wish you were dead"? Especially when they couldn't have their own way or things just wasn't going the way they wanted it to go. Well, I have. And I'm pretty sure some of you have also. And I can only imagine the pain and the hurt that this parent felt. Okay, especially the father when the son asked for his inheritance. Psalm 78:40 shows us that the Israelites during their exodus through the desert grieved God. Now, this tells us that God has emotions. Do you know that God hurts? God hurts just like we do, if not even more. Basically, I feel that he hurts more because he created us. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even be here. And I'm sure that's what God is thinking. I created you, and yet you're going to turn your back on me? And you're going to treat me as if I was dead? I'm sure that hurt God. And I can only imagine if Jesus wept, how the Father would be. The son's inheritance, to continue with the story, didn't last very long. He squandered it on every ungodly thing that he could think of. On prostitutes, alcohol, partying, you name it. Okay. Now, as it would always happen, the Murphy's Law, if anything goes wrong, it will. There came a great famine in the land. And the son found, after having no money left, there was no one that he could turn to. And to make matters worse, he had nothing to eat. He was able to gain employment with a citizen, and that employment was to feed the pigs. Well, they had to have some kind of way of eating, okay? And so he took the job. But through his hunger, he realized that the person who hired him only had enough food for his family and wasn't about to share with him. So what was left for him to eat was the same slop that he was feeding the pigs. Now, how many of us would want to eat pig slop? I know I wouldn't. Okay. So the son, realizing that he was in dire straits, started thinking, and he said, He said, my father has plenty, and even his servants have more than enough. And if I can even just go back as a servant, at least I can have something to eat or something.